Let us begin the PIDE webinar. Ji, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, aapka think tank, is ready to discuss the chemical industries. As you know, we at PIDE, by the way, my name is Nadeem Haque. We at PIDE are focused, as we should be, on the Pakistan economy, trying to learn as much as we can about the Pakistan economy. So we are trying to explore all sectors, all areas of Pakistan's economy, including foreign aid, to find out what we can learn about how our economic policy is made, what the significant factors of growth are, what the significant contributors to development are. So in that context, आज chemical industry से भी बात कर रहे हैं. I think this is an industry, an important industry. All industries important. I don't want to discriminate. All industries are equally important, and we are trying to, learn about all of them. And inshallah, we will be writing about all this. And we do want to act as a bridge between the government and the industry, so that we can get sensible policy, sensible regulation in place, so that the ultimate beneficiary is Pakistan. तो इस सिलसिले में मैं ये सिर्फ एक चीज कहना चाहता हूँ कि yes, of course, we need a vibrant chemical industry. तो जरा शुरू करते हैं chemical industry पे बात. सईद इकबाल किदवाई साहब, सेक्रेटरी जनरल पाकिस्तान केमिकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एसोसिएशन से. इकबाल साहब जरा बताइए कि केमिकल इंडस्ट्री की क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन है इकोनॉमी को, how much is it worth, इसकी एम्प्लॉयमेंट कितनी है, and what are your experts? हमें basic facts जरा बता दें so that we can begin our discussion. Kidwai साहब, over to you. Kidwai साहब, I think you'll have to unmute. Yes, अब आवाज आ रही है. बोलिए किदवाई साहब, go ahead. जी आ रही, बोलिए.
Assalamualaikum. This is Iqbal Kidwai. I'm Secretary General Pakistan Chemical Manufacturing Association. Thank you very much. I really am thankful to PIDE for accepting this co-branded activity with us. And I think the importance of chemical industry cannot be overemphasized. It's a key driver in economic growth of any country. Just to set the scene, let me share with you a brief video on the importance of chemical industry. Please share, kare. क्या कह रहे हैं जहांगीर सर?
आवाज बिल्कुल क्लियर नहीं किदवाई साहब. I don't know what's happening. ये आवाज की नहीं.
पेश करो यार, यहाँ से नहीं जाएगा.
चलिए ठीक है, I think we can see it.
Ji sir, please go ahead, sir.
Ji Kidwai sahab, go ahead.
Sir, kindly अपना mic unmute कर लें, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Ji, we can, go ahead.
I'm just sharing the screen with you. यार क्या हो रहा है ये? Why can't we share the screen? ये लिखा इधर आओ ना यार.
Sir, 1 minute में कर. सर वहाँ से छोड़ दें, यहाँ से.
इधर तो देखो ना, इधर कुछ आ ही नहीं रहा है. इधर आओ, उससे कर लेते हैं. आवाज कम. इसको बंद कर. Just a brief video on the importance of the sector. Pakistan Chemical Manufacturer Association, just a word on that, that we are a forward-looking, valued and trusted apex body of Pakistan, trying to achieve competitiveness through import substitution and implementing best innovative practices. We have currently around 100 plus members. For the last 6 years, we have come to this number. And our vision is to valued and trusted apex body aiming to achieve responsible, innovative and sustainable chemical industry. Key objectives are to anticipate, suggest and respond to government regulatory policy, attract new investment and promote chemical exports, create synergy with academia, maintain good business relationship among PCMA members, and promote responsible care, which is very well respected initiative of the world. These are our esteemed members, which was also shown in the video. What we have done is that as the industry is huge and there are so many segments, so we have divided all these manufacturing chemicals into 19 segments, including textile, chemical, leather, chloralkali, fertilizer, paints, pharmaceutical, construction, petrochemical, adhesives, hydrogen peroxide, detergents, industrial gases, oleochemicals, acids, minerals and mines, processing, water treatment, silicone, pesticides, insecticides, soaps, and cosmetics. So these are those 19 our members, 100 plus members are manufacturing in these segments.
Kidwai sahab, मेरा ख्याल आपकी slides नहीं चल रही. Slide को आगे कर दें.
Slides नहीं चल रही?
नहीं चल रही.
अच्छा, मैं मेरे पे स्क्रीन में चेंज आ रही है.
अब चलिए जी, पहले नहीं चल रही थी.
अच्छा, तो ये इससे पहले वाली स्लाइड ये मैंने दिखाई थी जिसमें 19 सेगमेंट्स थे. और now this we've already discussed this in the video कि इसकी global market size is $5.7 trillion, or this is a fourth largest and third fastest growing sector. Domestic market size is something like $12 billion. Export, despite the constraints, we have been able to export something like $0.7 million, which is not much, but we are coming up. So there are impact on other sectors. The 96% of all manufactured goods are based on chemicals. They provide essential raw materials to all the cross-cutting industries. More than 70% of global textile fiber are based on chemicals. 90% of global textile fiber growth comes from chemistry, which is the key export sector of Pakistan. Chemical industry is the main supplier in the whole supply chain of textile sector in Pakistan. So it has got a huge spillover effects, like one job created in chemical industry supports 7.8 jobs in country. $1 generated in chemical sector increases national income by 4.2 factor, contributing around 170 billion in national tax net, provide around 400,000 jobs, direct and indirect jobs. So next, this is a recent contribution which we have made despite the COVID. For the last 2-3 years, our members who have contributed, like Engro Polymer and Chemical Limited, they have expanded 100,000 metric tons of PVC plant. Never Industrial Chemical, they have contributed 7 billion of new investment. Archroma Pakistan, similarly Descon, ICI, Tufel, Rani Gases, Sadara, all these companies, they have, despite all these constraints, they are coming with the new investments. Viscose staple fiber facility is also under active consideration, which is a biosector. Siddiq Agricos, they are also coming in the biosector. Several other plants like glucose and citric acid are also under consideration. So this means that we are also using the other options, petrochemical and chemical apart. Exports, as I already mentioned, 0.76 million, despite the, this is the details, I don't want to read these details. Imports is huge. And basically we are value-adding, importing these chemicals from different countries and adding value to them for domestic consumption mostly. Major petrochemicals that we are importing are these polypropylene, LDP, xylene. I don't want to go into details, but the share of the petrochemicals is over 30% in overall chemical import of Pakistan, which is huge. This is a famous cracker. We have been talking for the last 5-6 years that if we don't have a single cracker, whereas in regional countries like India, Iran, Singapore, all these countries, they have several crackers. We don't have. So I don't want to talk on cracker because JP will be talking on that. Import substitution is the route that we can take very easily because dollar saved is dollar earned. So we can save something like, we can substitute something like $5.196 billion in, say, like 2025. This is the details. This has been given in this, which I don't want to again read out. Would like others to speak. I can come back again and give more statistics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kidwai Sab. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kidwai Sab. Badi aapne overview to de diya. Let's go to CEO of Engro Polymers and Chemical, Mr. Jahangir Paracha. Paracha Sab, ye to hame sabko pata hai ki it's a very important industry. It's the backbone of many things in any country. But क्या हमारी टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री किदवाई साहब कह रहे हैं कि जी $12 बिलियन इसकी हो गई है, पर एक्सपोर्ट बहुत ही कम है. मुझे फिगर नहीं याद रहा, बट थोड़ी है. So how should we look at this chemical industry? Is it an industry that's going to survive? And are you protected or not, Jahangir Paracha Sahab? Do you have an advantage in terms of tariffs and things? Can you?
Yeah, Dr. Nadeem, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Primarily, 9 billion is the number which I have, is the size of the chemical industry in Pakistan. And a very significant part of that invest size is probably fertilizer. We count fertilizer in it, which is agrochemicals, and refineries are not part of it. So that's the kind of size of the pie. There is a certain level of protection, definitely. The problem is that in Pakistan, we have not been able to reach, except for very few things, where you could have the economies of scale, which is true for manufacturing cars, and same is true for the chemicals. So ideally, you need to have world scale plants to compete with people who are producing around the world. So if you're putting up 100,000 tons plant and it's competing with somebody who has a 1 million ton plant, you'll never be able to compete. But over all these years now, some level of demand has come where the world scale plants can be brought in. And those plants only need a protection for the period when the plant project financing or you're repaying your debt. So sunset clauses can be put in to protect you when you're highly leveraged. You start a project, you're extremely leveraged, you're taking a lot of debt. Once you pay back the debt part, I think then you can do it. So if I really look at in my company, about 11% is what the protection levels are for some of the larger ones. Some of the people have even 20%, but they are very small scale players. And unfortunately, if you reduce this, level of protection, they won't survive because they don't have the scale. So going forward, what I feel is that we cannot develop this industry based on tariff protection only. We need to be only doing things where we have got the scale, where we can compete with a certain level of protection for the period when the project financing debt is being repaid. And beyond that, I think the business should survive on its own. Now, coming to your second point, where you talked about exporting, chemicals from Pakistan. So the only people who can export chemicals in the world are primarily people in North America or in US Gulf Coast, I would say, and the other is Middle East, where the primary raw materials are available. North America has got ample ethane, which they found, the boom in with fracking, what they have got a lot of gas and oil now in North America. And Middle East obviously also has a lot of these, primary raw materials. And they are the only ones who can actually sell these things competitively. If you buy plastic, and it's a very famous one, I say, when Korea exports plastic, it is not as a primary commodity, it is as an air conditioner. So you're buying lots of plastic from Korea, but that's coming as part of an air conditioner, or as part of a car, or as part of an appliance. So that's the space where Pakistani exports can go. We will be helping Pakistan. So if you, let's say, become a net exporter of mobile phones in Pakistan, so a lot of plastic will go into making that mobile phone. And that's how you will start exporting your chemicals or plastics or even other chemicals. So that's my key message, that our ability to become a net sort of very basic level chemical exporter is not there. We will never be able to compete. We can only compete if our chemicals become part of a value chain of an exporter in Pakistan. And that way we can, inshallah, export also. So I think Nadeem is on the call.
जी सर, Jahangir sir, please go ahead sir.
जी, so मैंने आंसर तो कर दिए दोनों उनके जो क्वेश्चंस थे कि एक तो एक्सपोर्ट्स पे व्हाट माय व्यू इज कि आप एक्सपोर्ट प्राइमरी केमिकल्स नहीं कर सकते पाकिस्तान से, बिकॉज हमारे पास वर्ल्ड स्केल कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है. सो वी विल नेवर बी इकोनॉमिकल टू compete with people who are exporting from मिडिल ईस्ट या नॉर्थ अमेरिका. और दुनिया बाकी जो चीज़ें एक्सपोर्ट करती है वो एज पार्ट ऑफ अ प्रोडक्ट करती है. वो प्लास्टिक्स हो जाएं, वो केमिकल्स हो जाएं. There are a lot of chemicals which are used in making other products. That's when you can actually export. So ये मेरे दो उनके जो थे. और प्रोटेक्शन लेवल्स ऑब्वियसली हैं हमारे पास इन दिस कंट्री राइट नाउ, क्योंकि हमारे पास कोई भी इंडस्ट्री इस वक्त एक्सेप्ट फॉर फ्यू विच आर नाउ गेटिंग टू द स्केल, वर्ल्ड स्केल के लेवल की नहीं पहुंची. जब तक आप वर्ल्ड स्केल आपके पास कैपेसिटी नहीं हो तो आप फुली compete नहीं कर सकते. बट मैंने ये भी कहा कि पाकिस्तान में अब कुछ ऐसे चीजें हैं केमिकल्स जिसमें हम वर्ल्ड स्केल पहुंच गए हैं, एंड वी वुड नीड ओनली प्रोटेक्शन लेवल्स जब प्रोजेक्ट की डेट आपके ऊपर books pe ho. Post that, I think the duties can be brought down to the global benchmarks between, let's say, 5 to 7%. That's where it would probably be. You can compete. I mean, if you go to Thailand and you go to Turkey and other countries, it's about 7 to 5%. That's where generally the reset. Even Korea still have got about 7% protection, and they're globally competitive. So those are the kind of lower level of duty protection which you have. So isse zyada kam to nahi, but 11 or 20 wala to lamba long term I don't see is viable for Pakistan to have those kind of protections and safeguard Pakistani industry. Then I mean, either we get into some other business. Ji. Nadeem sir, I hope I've answered your question.
Ji, very good. Thank you. Let me go back to now. Dr. Adeel Anwar, bioeconomy expert. Dr. Sahab, please bataiye, bioeconomy kya hai? How does it fit into chemicals?
Yes, assalamu alaikum everybody. First, I'd like to thank PIDE and PCMA for inviting me on today's webinar. So, my bioeconomy subject, it's not common. So, I'd like to give you a brief introduction. Bioeconomy. So, basically, I spent 26 years of my life in the UK and I moved back to Pakistan at the end of 2017. And bioeconomy was one of the main reasons that brought me back. Aapko screen nazar aa rahi hai?
We can see it.
Yes, sir.
You see it? Okay. Okay, so the key features of a bioeconomy. So bioeconomy is the fastest growing sector in UK in 2021. So I was at a recent conference, online conference by Supergen, and they stated this fact. And the other thing is people, when I was in the UK, I would never compare with India. But since I moved to Pakistan, like benchmark mara ke India ka kya kar raha hai? So India ki jo bioeconomy hai, it's worth $100 billion. And in 2020, it had 4,237 startups. And by 2025, it's expected to increase to $150 billion. Now, bearing in mind, Pakistan's GDP is around 250 billion. And the bioeconomy in EU, so I went to Brussels in 2015, and they mentioned that the bioeconomy in EU is worth $2 trillion and employs 18.3 million people. And there's roughly 224 biorefineries in the EU. Now, Pakistan potential, now this is potential, look at India says this potential in Pakistan here, estimate here is $200 billion and can create 2 million jobs. So in a nutshell, I'll just give you a brief overview on the trajectory the world is taking. So we know that the rise in greenhouse gas emissions is an issue, and we know that this is one of the key issues for this century. So I was with a chap named Professor Mike Bauman in 2014, and he worked for BP in Texas for 30 years. And he basically said in his presentation, he said that I want to apologize on my personal behalf and the behalf of all the scientists and researchers of my generation to your generation. This is how we started his speech. And he ended his speech, and basically what he was talking about, he said that if you look back in the past century or so, the rise in greenhouse gas emissions. So if you go to the early 20th century, you see that the coal contribution led to a rapid rise in greenhouse gas emissions. Then it's the oil, petroleum, then basically natural gas. But you see, if you look at the 21st century, you see a rapid rise in emissions. And we have the COP26 coming up, but if I take you back to COP21, where I was playing a pivotal role in raising bioeconomy awareness in Manchester, where I was based, what we were looking at essentially was we were looking at a mass balance on the emissions. So when we look at the emissions, essentially what Professor Mike Bauman suggested was that we need to transition from coal to oil to gas. Okay, that's one way of tackling the greenhouse gas emissions. Second thing we need to do, the advice was that we need to increase renewable usage to reduce emissions. Third thing, awareness to conserve energy. As a society which is based on capitalism and it's all about more, doing more, rarely do we reflect and we mention things like how we can reduce consumption and conserve energy. Then the thing is energy efficient appliances. That's a huge area that needs to look into, and then improve energy storage. And this is the last area which is the area of my personal interest, develop decentralized economies away from petrol-based economy. So in that you have bioeconomy, you have a renewable electric economy, you have hydrogen economy, you have methanol economy, and there's a few more. So these are the main areas that that are of focus. Today specifically, I'm going to mention and raise awareness about bioeconomy. So if we bring it back home to Pakistan, we realized in 2018 that if we looked at the most polluted cities on earth, India and Pakistan dominated. So India mainly, but Pakistan, so Faisalabad was on number 3, Lahore was on number 10. But then when I looked at the statistics in 2020, Lahore ने तरक्की कर ली थी, 3 पे पहुंच गए. और मुझे डॉक्टर वकार ने बताया था यूटी में जो है, उन्होंने कहा था अब जो है स्टैट है कि लाहौर is on number 1. So we are making progress, but in the wrong areas. So when we look in a nutshell of the petrochemical industry, so this map in general summarizes the petrochemical industry. So when we look at everything around you in the room at the moment, it essentially stems from 4 things: the raw materials, petroleum, natural gas, O2, N2, air, and SO2. Then you've got your commodity chemicals, benzene, xylene, toluene, etc. Then you've got your secondary chemicals, intermediates, and they go into the entire sector. So we are based in a petroleum-based economy. Now, what's my vision and my mission for Pakistan is how can we switch from a petroleum-based economy to bioeconomy? Because the reality is, if you look at the world around us, and I remember Jahangir, when he came to PCMA, he mentioned that the state bank is no longer funding coal-based technologies. If I'm correct, he mentioned that. So if you look at the news that are coming to CNN, there was this article, oil companies are told to stop drilling to save the planet. Why it's the end of the road? The BBC News says, why it's the end of the road for petrol stations? In UK, the interesting thing that I also got from the conference is that UK is banning sales of petroleum and diesel cars by 2030. So when we look at the global scenario, we realize that the world is shaping and it's an inflection point, because we're at a point where the inflection point, we've got the climate change on one hand, and then you've got the chronic fiscal imbalance on the other hand. So it's a point where we really need to reflect as a nation that where do we want to take things? Because the reality is, if you look at the net zero target set by 2050, if you look at the 2021, this is by International Energy Agency, by 2021, they've clearly stated no new unabated coal plants approved for development. By 2025, no new sales of fossil fuel boilers. Then 2030, 60% of global car sales are electric. So we have the world's rapidly evolving, and by 2035, no new internal combustion engine car sales. So we're here dreaming of since I've come here, since I've interacted with PCMA, this obsession of a petroleum cracker and relying on coal and fossil fuel technologies. I don't think it's, I would not advise that, looking at the trajectory where the world's going. Now, another thing to reflect upon is that Professor Adeel, who's the leading authority on sustainability, she was one of my teachers on sustainability. She mentioned, someone asked her in a conference, they asked her, what do you think is the biggest issue on the planet at the moment? And she replied, capitalism. So she blatantly replied, capitalism. Then someone asked her at the end of her explanation, they said, what do you think is the solution? And she said, I believe that the solution does not lie with the scientists, rather we must turn to the philosophers. This was her answer. Now, if we look at the diagram that I'm showing you, so in capitalism, what we've essentially got is petroleum, the petrodollar. So what the petrodollar does essentially is you've got US at the top of the pyramid, and then you've got the OPEC countries, the Middle Eastern countries and a few others. And then you've got people like us at the bottom of the pyramid, the non-OPEC countries. Now, if say, for instance, we say, okay, chalo theek hai, dollar ko side pe kar dete hain, we change it to petro, yuan, or we change it to some other gold standard, or whatever we do. The thing is, that's still equality. That's still equality. Chota banda maar jaisa phir bhi maar jata hai. Okay, so what we need is we need justice. We need to use our own resources and tap into alternate economies, such as a bioeconomy or a renewable electric economy. And when I talk about bioeconomy, what I must emphasize, and PCMA asked me for the next station to do bioeconomy, bioeconomy in and of itself is not sufficient. We must also use alternative economies such as renewable electric economy, such as solar and wind. Because if you look at IEA's targets, they have, if I just take it back, so by 2050, they're saying that 70% electricity generation globally from solar, photovoltaics, and wind. Now, the transportation is being electrified. There's no two ways about it. Okay, or maybe it'll go into a hydrogen economy. But what about the textile sector? What about the paints? What about the plastics? What do we do with them? That's the question. And the answer to that essentially is, in my opinion, is a bioeconomy. So in 2004, they were mentioning in the US, David Morris was mentioning that the US is the Saudi Arabia of carbohydrates. Now it begs the question, what is Pakistan then? Pakistan is known, its Indus Valley region is known for its agriculture. So the other thing that the USDA mentioned was moving from an economy based on geology to one biology. So this is what they were talking about. And then when I was in Brussels, 2015, this stat came that 2.1 trillion turnover of the European bioeconomy and 18.3 million employees. And this is a map of 224 biorefineries in Europe. So this isn't a pie in the sky idea. People say, "Ye to bahut futuristic, 200 saal baad jaake ye cheez hoegi." This isn't a pie in the sky idea. This is something that's practically happening. So, and then the other evidence for the Indian bioeconomy is written basically, you can see it here, that roughly 100 billion at the moment. This was a 2020 article, but in 2021 it was 100 billion. And also they've written that 150 billion bioeconomy by 2025. Okay, so what is a bioeconomy essentially? So when we talk about bioeconomy, we talk about biology. In biology, we're no longer talking about crude oil and fractionating it, and then you have your different alkenes and alkanes and the hydrocarbon chain. Hydrocarbons. What we're talking about essentially is carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acid, and some people add water. Okay, so this is essentially what biology is. So when we talk about carbohydrates, we've got cellulose, hemicellulose, starch. And then in lipids, we have triglycerides, we have fatty acids, and proteins composed of amino acids. So essentially, this is biology. But the big question people raise is, what about the availability? What about this? These are the bio challenges. अब लोग काफी कहते हैं कि हमारे पास खाने के लिए जमीन नहीं है, आप कह रहे हैं कि आप प्लास्टिक बनाने हैं अपने और पौधे लगाने हैं तेल के लिए. So I will answer that in a few slides, but availability is an issue. Okay, then the second thing is sustainability. In essence, if we look at the bioprocess, for example, actually two things I like to mention here. First thing is, when I talk about bioeconomy, I place filters. We need to not, and this is my advice to the governments and funding authorities, do not invest much more money into biodiesel or bioenergy. Why? Because these are largely going to be electrified. So the question is, when we narrow the bioeconomy, I think the focus should be on biochemicals. And when we talk about biochemicals, what we need to look at is the chain. So for example, if I take the example of biodiesel, which is a biofuel, but just as an example, to make biodiesel, you need lipids, triglycerides, you react them with methanol. The question is, where does the methanol come from? And at the moment, the methanol is coming from the petrochemicals. So technically, the biodiesel making process isn't sustainable. Okay, so then we need to look at the other supply chain of the chemicals. Then we've got cost, and then we've got quality. But these are the four challenges. If we can overcome these, then we can really kick off the bio industry. Let me just give you an example of how a biochemical industry can replace a petrochemical. So there's a company called Renmatics, which is based in the US, and Bill Gates invested, if I'm not incorrect, he invested around $14 million. Now, what they do is, from wood, as you can see, from wood, you extract, you separate lignin and hemicellulose and cellulose, which are sugars. Then using these sugars, just as in the petrochemical industry, you can produce your primary chemicals, secondary chemicals, and your product, and then they go into the entire industry: communication, health, hygiene, industrial, recreational, construction, transportation, food supply, textile, household care. So just as in the petrochemical industry, you can do the same in the bio industry, but the building blocks are different. So this is a map that summarizes the chain. So you've got starch, hemicellulose, cellulose, which I mentioned, carbohydrates, lignin, oil, and proteins. You make sugars, and then you make secondary chemical intermediates, and they go in the entire chain. So this is how we can translate from a petrochemical to a biochemical industry. So when we talk about the oil, petroleum industry, the oil and gas industry, we talk about the oil barrel. But just as you can have an oil barrel, you can also create a bio barrel. Okay, so these are some things, and a fraction, just as you do the distillation in petroleum, you can separate the fractions in biochemicals from biomass, extract the constituents. Now, I'll give you an example now. People don't realize the actual potential this has for Pakistan, because I'm just going to share a couple of examples. 1 million tons of cellulosic sugar can produce 24 million. अगर हम सिर्फ products बनाते हैं ना, तो जहांगीर साहब ने value chain की बात की थी. The same is true for the bio industry. If we create the value chain, the supply chain will sort itself out. And this is my opinion when I initiated this, and also Agrico's CEO, Asad Saf, when I spoke to him, he was of the same opinion, that people that are familiar with the bio industry know that if the value chain is established, the supply chain will sort itself out. And when you look at the value chain, you can make bio-based diapers, 24 million for 24 million babies. Okay, you can make 120 billion compostable cups of PLA, polylactic acid. You can make paint for 14 million new homes from 1 million tons of cellulosic sugar. Now, how much cellulosic sugar do we have? And this is some study that we did compiled together. If you just look at wheat, straw, now these are biomass sources, waste. These aren't, we're not even looking into, so people then question this food versus fuel debate. ठीक है, अब खाने के लिए आप प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए इस्तेमाल करने लगे हैं, खाने की पीने की चीजें, तो उनकी प्राइसेस कहाँ से कहाँ चली जाएंगी. But the thing is, we're looking at waste. So now if you just look at one waste, wheat straw, we have 37 million tons. मैंने आपको 1 million ton की वो डाइपर्स की, कप्स की और जो है पेंट की एग्जांपल दी थी. Just from one waste, wheat straw, we have 37 million tons, because this is 37,000 metric tons. So we have enough just waste. Furthermore, people say Pakistan के पास खाने के लिए ज़मीन नहीं है और खाने पीने की चीज़ें उगाने के लिए ज़मीन नहीं है, तो आप प्रोड्यूस की बात कर रहे हैं. When I talk about lipids, so I've just mentioned carbohydrates. If I come on to lipids, in lipids, I do not suggest we even look at natural resources of lipids. कुदरती जो सबसे yielding plant अल्लाह ने बनाया है वो है palm oil. Palm oil is the most oil yielding plant in nature. But if you look at this diagram, 6,000 liters per hectare is what palm oil is capable of producing. So, and then when you compare that to microalgae, a microalgae of low oil content, it's a fraction. Now, if we were looking at lipids, I would strongly recommend that we look into microalgae because of its yield potential and the less land requirement that we need. Okay, so I'll be summarizing soon. So the thing that brought me back to Pakistan was essentially that Asia has the highest potential of a bioeconomy. So the potential of the Asian bioeconomy is $9 trillion. Okay, it's more than America, it's more than Africa, and Europe is $2 trillion. The global bioeconomy is $30 trillion. And we've extrapolated that from the EU stats. Companies that are currently working on this, and just to name a few, Renmet 6, DuPont, Aleco, Beta Renewables, GF Biochemicals, Neste Oil, Argent Energy, and Aleco are working on biodiesel. GF Biochemicals and Beta Renewables are based in Italy. And Bioeconomy Corporation. This is an example, just an example that in 2003, DuPont with National Renewable Energy Labs, they inaugurated integrated corn biorefinery. So this used corn, and with corn, I mean, we've got lots of corn in Pakistan, but just an example, they produce biochemicals and Serona biopolymer, which goes into produce jackets. Okay, so they produce bioethanol as well and power, but they were producing jackets from corn and corn stover. In short, in a nutshell, there's roughly 12 biochemicals, but I've identified 17. If we can build these 17 biochemicals in Pakistan, then we can create a full bioeconomy in Pakistan. So this is just a list, and the multi-billion-dollar market sizes of most of these chemicals. Okay, so now I'm just going to bring the debate home. Should we have a petrochemical refinery or should we go for a biorefinery? Now, since I met PCMA, which was February of earlier this year, PCMA told me that they've got their main brains together and they've brainstormed and they've come to the conclusion. I think Iqbal can correct me if I'm wrong, but he said that we need 8 petrochemical crackers. Okay, so the question is, if we need 8 petrochemical crackers, I'll put a question mark, so Iqbal can confirm that, how much does one cost? One costs 8.6 billion. So who is going to fund $68.8 billion? That's another question. Will state, so, and then Jahangir Paracha mentioned that the state bank is no longer funding coal technologies. So my question then is, how long is it till the state bank will fund fossil fuel based technologies? Okay, how many jobs will it create? Does Pakistan have the raw material? So at the moment, I'm sure Saad he will enlighten us even more. But the reality is that a lot of the refineries and the crackers in the Middle East, they are being subsidized by the government. So even if you set these up, would Pakistan government subsidize these? So does Pakistan have raw material? The answer is no. And even if Saudi Arabia and countries alike give us the raw material, will they sell it to us at a cheaper rate than their existing crackers? Or will they give us the thing cheaper and put their own businesses out? I don't think that's the case. So these are the questions chemical. When you come to biochemicals, what are so ideally I should have done pros and cons, but I really was short on time, so I just put this together. But when it comes to biochemical refineries, biochemicals are comparatively underdeveloped. That's one thing we must admit. Okay, how much does one biochemical refinery cost? We have the example of Beta Renewables in Crescentino, Italy. Their biochemical refinery costs 350 million. We're not even talking about billions. So we can build at least 20 biochemical refineries for one petroleum refinery. And then the question is, how many jobs will it create? I think more. And then the other question marks we have is, where do we begin? But those that have been following PCMA and the bioeconomy journey that I've been on will know that I've narrowed things down where we should begin. Do we have secure feedstock supply? This is a question. This is a key question that we need to address. Variation in supply chain with seasons. So we're no longer talking about pumping oil from the ground. We're talking about real life biological matter, so which varies with seasons. So this is something that we need to address. So the bioeconomy isn't all all set in sailing. There are challenges, which I admit, but it's something that I believe we really ought to be looking into, because the reality is, this is my concluding remarks. If Pakistan is starting from scratch, okay, we don't have a petrochemical refinery. If we're starting from scratch, why not do it properly? Okay. Another thing is, I mentioned time and time again, rather than thinking one to end, we should be looking at what we need, what we can do. Okay, so because I spoke to one of my friends in Croda, and I got their perspective of where Pakistan stands at the moment. And their reply was this, that petroleum refineries is a good idea, but perhaps 40 years ago. अगर पाकिस्तान ने पेट्रोकेमिकल रिफाइनरी लगानी थी ना 40 साल पहले लगाते तो बात बनती, अभी लगाना कोई फायदा नहीं है. That was their perspective from Europe. Okay, and only establishment of biorefineries makes sense for Pakistan because it's an agricultural based country. Sustainability should be the key benchmark in technology adoption, because keeping in mind national interest and also global requirements. ठीक है, आपके आप मजे से लगा लेंगे पेट्रोकेमिकल रिफाइनरी, दुनिया कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच जानी है. The rapidly changing technologies and the way the world is evolving, आप लगा लेंगे और ये कि fossil fuel products पे ban लग जाए, आपने इतना invest कर लिया. So the thing is, we need to be smart and we need to look 1 or 2 steps ahead. And I will just end by saying, just conveying what Leonardo DiCaprio said in the UN conferences, that our planet cannot be saved unless we leave fossil fuels in the ground where they belong. We have a decision to make as a nation in Pakistan. We either take action and we do things properly, or we take option B, business as usual, do what others are doing. Because the decisions we make will lead to the
Thank you,
actions
Adeel
we
sir.
take and lead to results. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you very
my
much,
job.
Adeel sir. Good job, very good job. But let me tell you very frankly, we always take the wrong decision. So I would advise you to, rethink your plans. I don't think that we are ready for anything new. We've not done anything new in the last 73 years. Why do you think we're going to do anything new? And right now, if I assume right, bioeconomy is zero in Pakistan. Is that right?
Zero. I mean, there's agri-cores who are extracting glucose, and there are a few other bioethanol plants. So it's not zero. And
Okay.
furthermore, from a networking, you've got excellent resources. You've got Center of Excellence in Molecular Biology. We're doing amazing work on microalgae. So
Fair
we're
enough.
not starting from fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, but right now we have nothing of the sort. So okay, Saad Anwar साहब, ये बताइए कि ये सब बात ठीक है, बट क्या हमारी ये इंडस्ट्री कोई स्केल अप हो सकती है और सब्सिडी के बगैर चल सकती है? क्योंकि अदील साहब ने भी कहा कि सब्सिडी चाहिए, पहले भी वो सब्सिडी चल रही है, हुकूमत बैंकक्रप्ट है, टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री भी सब्सिडी मांगती है, ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री भी सब्सिडी मांगती है, सब सब्सिडी मांगते हैं, तो ये कैसे गुजारा होगा? बताइए साद अनवर साहब, कैन टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री बी good on its own? Ji.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'm extremely honored to be invited by PCMA and PIDE for inviting me to this webinar. So looking at Dr. Adeel, first I would take the blame to be at 1 rather than 0 and to be at B rather than A. So I am part of the conventional oil world since my graduation, previously with BP in the crude oil trading and gasoline trading, and recently with as a director for strategic planning and business finance at Sadara Chemicals, which is the heart-owned petrochemical complex of Saudi Aramco, which they take very good pride in. So I have something to share, and of course, Dr. Nadeem, I mean, I would be answering you to your question. I'll take a pause here and let me know if you can see my slides. Are you able to?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a full screen, right?
Yes, we can see.
Oh, very good. Okay, so so let me, before we take a dive into what petrochemical is, let me start with this, that whenever the world talks about creativity and growth, there are two fundamental elements to it. First is the old school value creation that focuses on revenue generation or cost optimization. आज हम import कर रहे हैं, हम अपने scale को बड़ा कर लेते हैं, तो हमारी cost reduce हो जाएगी. हम एक plant से दूसरा plant लगा लेते हैं, हमारा revenue थोड़ा सा बढ़ जाएगा. But what we are seeing is that this old school is now no longer there. What the world is now perceiving towards is a more modern oriented disruptive innovation that creates new markets, new value networks, displaces established products and processes. And in the last decade, we all have witnessed that the humanity has been challenged with safety, with health, with environment, and capitalism, as Dr. Adeel correctly said. And that has channeled the core of human beings to bring new and different things to the marketplace. So having said that, let's first begin with where we are as a world today. I mean, speaking of Sadara and what we are trying to do in Pakistan. So Sadara is at the heart of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a petrochemical complex with a mixed feed cracker at its origin, taking the combinations of gas and liquid as feedstocks and cracking the polyethylenes and polyurethanes to the marketplace. We produce about 3 million metric tons in the derivative slate. That includes 40% in the polyethylenes, 25% in polyols and glycols, and 15% in ethers and amines, and 20% in specialty isocyanates, some of which was referenced by the previous presenters. So let's just take a step back of where Pakistan stands relative to Middle East and relative to North America. In here, on the left, you have five bars. The red one represents the ethylene. And ethylene is the backbone of polyethylene, plastics, which is used for food processing and many other things. Ethane is coming as a subsidized feedstock for Middle East, and it is coming as a shale produced origin for the US. And they take pride in it, and that's why they are ruling this OPEC or capitalist world from this feedstock. What Pakistan is trying to do is number 4 down on that bar slate, which is a naphtha cracker. So when we talk about naphtha cracker, of course, there is no subsidies attached to it. It's all at international regulated prices. And we will get a combination of ethylene and propylenes out of it, which can be used to produce the downstream derivatives. Taking a back into what Dr. Adeel mentioned, कि अगर पाकिस्तान ने cracker लगाना होता 40 साल पहले सोचते, बिल्कुल सोचते, because we had low energy prices, we had a peak or a rise in the North American gas prices, we had higher crude oils in the Middle Ages, and now what we have seen is the crude oil collapse. We are seeing now the shale advantage. We are seeing concerns about the fuel oil markets. We are seeing unprecedented scale of growth, which is happening in Southeast Asia into these manufacturing or chemical complexes. In this chart, I would explain exactly what Dr. Nadeem is asking. कि सब्सिडी के बगैर हमारा काम चल सकता है? नहीं चल सकता, नहीं चल सकता. क्यों नहीं चल सकता? Because if you really look at it, there are 3 bars or 3 line charts to your left. The lowest in the file, where the cost of ethylene is the lowest, is for the Middle Eastern producers, followed by North American producers. वो $500 a ton में आपको ethylene बना के बेच सकता है. और हम जो कि Northeast Asian producers हैं, when we go into the market and try to put up a same petrochemical complex, we are at a $1,000 range. So we are very much above the benchmark in terms of cost optimization. So even for Middle Eastern producers, let me give you an example of what is happening in Middle East right now. Naphtha relative to ethylene is not very competitive anymore, because ethane is being subsidized. Therefore, even the government of Saudi Arabia has to introduce shareholder support packages. And I know even ADNOC in Middle East, Dubai, has to introduce the shareholder support packages to sustain their petrochemical complexes, especially in the project financing phase, which of course ADNOC was going through and now Sadara is. So ethylene prices and margins are always cyclical in nature, meaning that in 2011 through 14, we saw a period of relatively low spreads. However, there was limited capacity additions. And then there was a trough. Industry experienced an extended upscale in 2019 onwards with steady demand growth, and therefore there was reinvestments and focus on reinvestments in this sector. From 2026 through 35, yes, we will be seeing the growth, since the spread between ethylene and naphtha is expected to expand on the back of a higher crude oil regime. Should that happen, yes, naphtha cracker would be profitable to produce the ethylene, where we could compete on marginal basis with the other Asian producers. Still, we would not be able to compete with Middle East, since they own the heart of crude oil production. Propylene, on the other end, which is also would be coming out of the naphtha cracker if we were to put it on, is also the backbone of the modern age chemicals, and it follows the cyclicality with the crude oil prices. However, what we had seen in the recent past is that since the world was so much focused as an advent of shale gas on gas crackers, that propylene was somewhat sidelined, and there were not many investments into the naphtha space. And therefore, we are seeing that the spreads between ethylene and propylene are now at their historic highs. And we could see that trend to continue. And should that continue, we would see that the downstream propylene derivatives will continue to make money. And in this case, I'm talking about polyols, I'm talking about specialty isocyanates and polyurethanes. They will continue to increase as on the back of demand growth, as well as because of the shortage of propylene in the global space. So what are the investment applications that we are thinking of, some of which, of course, Dr. Iqbal Saab has already mentioned, but there is a lot that we have on offer. Of course, I'm not contradicting Dr. Adeel here. There is a bioeconomy space that, of course, could also gear towards the same end products. But if we are talking about sustaining our own economy in the conventional space, we have to do an investment. And that investment would guarantee that we get our own food packaging rather than imported, our own bottles and containers from the polyethylenes. We can introduce the polyoxide derivatives, which could be in the films, in the detergents, coatings, textiles, and all these industries, which are very much prevalent in either in Pakistan or in close proximity to Pakistan. And Pakistan can surely take advantage of exporting to those regions and also for domestic use. We can invest into the propylene oxide derivatives, which is foams and polyester resins. We could have the crude C4 stream out of our naphtha cracker, which could be done for the butadiene, for the rubber industry, for the raffinates, isobutylenes, and many others. As Dr. Jahangir had said, that वो Koreans जो है ना वो AC बना के बेचते हैं, तो हम क्यों बेड्स बना के नहीं बेच सकते? Because we do not have the base or the ground to get this raw material produced on the home ground and then take competitive advantage in exporting this to the international markets. Project economics, of course, this has been done as a PCMA pre-feasibility, and there is a $3 to $4 billion, of course, for a standalone naphtha cracker, or $6 billion for an integrated petrochemical complex. Keeping the climate aside, there is benefit to it in terms of the net earnings that it would bring for the economy of Pakistan at $22 billion. The payback period is in 5 years. It would surely gear opportunities in the human capital from 6,000 all the way up to 12,000, as Iqbal Bhai had mentioned. IRR and return on investments, NPV bases are all positive. So what are some of the challenges that we have to keep in mind? Because this is something that I have learned from my experience in Sadara, that only having a cheaper feedstock does not necessitate you that you will become the world leader in the chemical space. And therefore, not having the feedstock does not give you any less privilege to become a world leader. China can still become a world leader even with naphtha crackers on board. So what are some of the challenges for Pakistan that can be turned into opportunities? First of all, is to develop the new petrochemical zones, integration to the refinery for feedstock, the ports for supply chain. Of course, we have Gwadar being developed, and the downstream industry players taking open connection to this heart of this petrochemical complex. There is, of course, going to be competition for investments and markets. Bio is one space as a competitor for the conventional petrochemicals. We see the cyclicality of the petrochemical industry impacting imported feedstock versus downstream margins. We will have surely competition from other Asian producers, notably China and Korea. We have to be conducive in the environment from the political, economic, and security standpoint in order to bring investments. And this is also true for Middle East. I mean, Saudi Arabia, with all its privileges has not been able to attract investments because of the geopolitics and, of course, the other social impacts that are impeding on it. Then we have the lack of synergies and economies of scale. As a producer, to start with, we cannot produce 1 million metric tons and be a global competitor with other dominant players. Therefore, we need to form joint ventures and strategic partnerships. This is what Middle Eastern players had been very profound in attracting investors from or partners from Americas, also from Europe, and they had been very strategic and had been very competitive in doing so. We have to nurture the skilled personnel. Right now, I do not know of that if there are any traditional petrochemical institutions that gear our youth towards this direction or to become masters in it. And therefore, we need to be conscious of that. Availability and reliability of feedstock, as Dr. Adeel mentioned, of course, it's not about just plucking the pipeline and extracting oil from the ground. It's about imported feedstocks. In this case, we are talking about crude oil, and we will be subject to volatility in the markets from that. We do not have a sufficient infrastructure yet in place or support services, and this is to do with mostly utilities. Hamara pani, electricity, these are the basic fundamentals which are required for the growth of the petrochemical complexes, and we need to ensure that such support services are provided. And then, of course, technological enhancements, that we need to invest in R&D institutions. We need to nurture expertise in management, encouraging applications for product diversification, may it be into the biospace or may it be in the conventional space, infusing the hybrid of developing renewable raw materials and biodegradable materials as well. So having said that, I'm not shy to say that, yes, biochemicals is a place where we should be. However, we should not shy to actually invest in the conventional space of a naphtha cracker as well, should our investment portfolio allows it. Of course, we need to be conscious.
Can you try and wrap it up in 2 minutes, please?
Sure, will do. That we need to be conscious of the plastic recycling impact, that the world is gearing towards the cyclical economy, and therefore a lot has been done to actually induce these producers to move away from producing too much of plastics into the climate. So we need to be conscious of that as well. So this is from my side, and we are up for any questions or comments that you may have.
Okay, great, folks. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting webinar, except I have few issues. You are talking too much about the future. I wanted to learn about the current for the time being. I've been hearing about naphtha cracker, I guess, for the last 30 years now. Pakistan should have a naphtha cracker. And we are nowhere near to doing it. And again, I'd like to know, what is the role of the private sector in this? Because the emphasis that I hear on both the bio and the Sadara thing, that it's the government job to do many things. Personally, I think the government cannot do anything because A, the government doesn't have the resources, the government can't manage its budget, the government can't manage a policy. So the government is incapable of doing anything. So let's begin with the right assumptions. When you say we, मैं परेशान हो जाता हूँ, we क्या है? कौन है ये we? कौन से we हैं? आपका मतलब सिर्फ यही है tax payers, कि tax payers पैसे दें इंडस्ट्री चलाने के लिए. तो भाई फिर सोशलिज्म पे चले जाते हैं. फिर why should we remain the free market enterprise? ठीक है ना जी? फिर free market पे रहना नहीं चाहिए. तो मुझे बताइए कि ये गवर्नमेंट के बगैर क्या काम हो सकता है? और अभी भी आपकी इंडस्ट्री जो चल रही है सब्सिडी पे, फर्टिलाइजर की सब्सिडी है, बाकी जगह सब्सिडी है, प्रोटेक्शन है, वो जो रेजिन्स हैं उन पे भी प्रोटेक्शन है, हर जगह प्रोटेक्शन है. ये जो 60-70 साल से चीजें चली आ रही हैं, कब हमारी इंडस्ट्री, मैं सब इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहा हूँ, सिर्फ आपकी नहीं कर रहा, ऑटोमोबाइल भी है, वो 1 लाख गाड़ियां बनाते हैं और हमारे वो ऊपर बैठे हुए हैं कि जी बस हमने आप पे बड़ा एहसान किया. आज पीपीस वाले बैठे हमारे ऊपर बड़ा एहसान किया है। तो आप लोग भी सब्सिडी ले, मुझे बताइए ये सब्सिडी वाला निजाम कहाँ से खत्म होगा और आपका स्केल कब बड़ा होगा? छोटे छोटे स्केल पे आप ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं। लेट मी आस्क यू अनदर क्वेश्चन। एक तो ये सवाल का जवाब दीजिए जहांगीर साहब, मुझे इसका बता दीजिए। जी बताइए।
So, बड़ा Nadeem साहब, I think it's one of the best questions you've asked in the whole narrative because it's just about today. It's not about future, you know. So, मैं अगर आपको बताऊं, there are 5 projects where we have reached 5 world scale, and 4 Pakistani groups are actually looking at projects without any support from government. First of all, okay. PVC, which I'm running, आपको 400,000 tons का plant है, world scale competitive plant है, where you can actually operate this without duty protection or traditional duty protection जो थाईलैंड में है, कोरिया में है, जापान में है, जर्मनी में है, वो 5 to 7% है, अगर वहां पे आप ले आए. So right now I have a protection level of only 4% versus what Korea gives. So 4% आप मुझे extra duty protection दे रहे हैं, which can be reduced once my debt financing is finished, जो project financing का phase निकल जाए, sunset clauses होने चाहिए और खत्म हो जाने चाहिए. I totally agree with you. You cannot run industry without on duty protections. But आप भी समझते हैं कि project financing जो 7 से 10 साल शुरू के होते हैं, where 70-30, 60-40 debt आपके ऊपर हो, 70% debt हो, that's the period when you need a little bit of protection, and that's once that's done. So ये 4% है खाली differential duty का, which we are asking. World scale plant आपका polypropylene, you can put a 750,000. We have already announced this project in Engro here. Okay. So मैं आपको बताता हूँ 5 projects बनाऊंगा. This is about $3 billion worth of projects. The first one is PVC, about $300 million when we get to 400,000 tons, which is a world scale size. Second project is about $1.5 to $1.7 billion. PDH route से polypropylene का project announce हो चुका है, feed हो रहा है इस time पे उसका. Third project is a PTA plant, polyester terephthalic acid of 1 million ton. Lotte is right set to get into that. Fourth project is Tufel Chemicals is working on linear alkaline benzene plant in Pakistan. $400 million की investment है. All of these projects, if you put them together is about $3 billion per level. All plants will be world scale size. हम पहुंच चुके हैं इनमें world scale, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह size पे. अब हमें government की कोई perpetual duty, subsidies, protection की जरूरत नहीं है. Yes, we want land, obviously land availability in the industrial parks somewhere. We need connectivity of water. We probably and all the projects are being designed on the fuel requirements are being designed on imported LNG as feeds, as energy input. Boilers चलाने हैं तो इन्होंने power plants चलाने हैं. Feedstocks, primary feedstocks आप ला सकते हैं, कोई ऐसी मसला नहीं है. और what we have seen that if this happens, this entire downstream industry which is already importing raw, कोई substitution है, ये सारा कुछ करके कोई 1 billion plus की substitution है annualized आपकी of the imported. I mean, I'm saying you still be importing feedstock, but the delta is about $1 billion plus. So which will happen, and it'll create jobs. It will reduce the supply chain. You know what Middle East lacks is a market. Also, one needs to understand their entire thing is they can't sell it in their local market. So no country of our size. There are 20 large countries with big GDPs and population. If you track them, not a single country does not have a cracker. So what Saad was saying is a great thing, but why is Vietnam putting up a cracker? Why can't it import from? So people have realized that you cannot be dependent on very long. I think this pandemic has also shown us that you can't be dependent on very long supply chains also. You know, the near shoring is another concept which is coming. So
Absolutely.
I am absolutely clear that Pakistan should not subsidize any industry which does not have the scale. Absolutely. We should not now bring in industry which organically grows. तो जो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ ये सारा कुछ है about $3 billion की है. 4 projects मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ. Formally काम हो रहा है सब पे. कुछ किसी पे आपकी फीड पे है, लेकिन फाइनल इन्वेस्टमेंट डिसीजन ऑब्वियसली टेक्स टाइम एंड दे शुड इंशाल्लाह इफ इट ऑल हैपेंस इन नेक्स्ट 6 years 6 to 7 years की ये रोड मैप है. क्रैकर का जो रोड मैप है, क्रैकर इन पाकिस्तान इज ओनली पॉसिबल इफ Saudi Aramco, ADNOC decides to put this big refinery, जो पार्को रिफाइनरी की बात कर रहे हैं. You need about 300,000 to 400,000 barrel to put up a million ton cracker with it. वो उसी के साथ आएगा. जो IRR है पाकिस्तान में for any refinery is currently about 8%. Now at 8%, it's very, very difficult to get investment. So when you put the petrochemical together, your IRR, integrated refinery and petrochemical complex, IRR of a project goes up to double digits, like maybe 12 to 15. And that's why it's very important कि आपकी जो नई refineries अब लगें, वो integrated chemical plants के साथ लगें. तो alhamdulillah, there is hope. I'm not saying that you would need to give subsidies. Don't bring in things where you don't have the scale and you not need subsidies. I mean, I'll give you an example of mobile phones now. Do you need to give a subsidy to people? 10 people have started mobile phones because you already have got that world scale size now. आपके millions of mobile phones यहाँ पे चाहिए और low. I'm not talking about the Apple and the Samsung, which is a small market, but I mean the lower value जो 20,000 रुपए तक का phone है, बना रहे हैं लोग और उसको बेच रहे हैं. So I mean, did we give them any protection? No. Did we give them any subsidies? No. So I think wherever you have the scale.
Sorry sir, जहांगीर साहब, ये तो बात सही नहीं है. हमने उनको प्रोटेक्शन दी है, बाकायदा प्रोटेक्शन दी है. आपने सब सेल फोन पे ड्यूटियां लगा दी हैं. अब सेल फोन को बाकायदा ट्रैक करके आप ड्यूटी लगाते हैं. दैट इज ऑल इन प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द मोबाइल फोन इंडस्ट्री. और सेकेंडली, प्लीज, आई डोंट इवन एग्री that we need a mobile phone industry. Mobile phone क्या होता है? Mobile phone is a piece of software and some technology. वो तो हमारे पास है नहीं. वो मोबाइल फोन के एक डब्बा ले आते हैं, डब्बा ला के उसको सील कर देते हैं. तो ये तो मैं भी बना लेता हूँ घर में. ये तो मैं भी घर में मैंने बनाया हुआ है. ये कोई इंडस्ट्री थोड़ी है. ये तो एक फ्रॉड है कि ये इंडस्ट्री लग गई मोबाइल फोन की. मतलब खुदा के वास्ते वो भी प्रोटेक्शन के नीचे लगी है यार. ये मुझे एक बात बताइए, मैं ये हमारे सेठ कब हमारे साथ सच बोलेंगे यार? खुदा के वास्ते एक इंडस्ट्री जो है वो अपने पैरों पे खड़े हो, जरूर पैसे बनाए, अपनी मर्सिडीज लें, अपनी पोर्श लें. कंज्यूमर से तो पोर्श न मर्सिडीज ना ले. अभी तो कंज्यूमर से ली जाती है चीज. सब्सिडी की जरूरत क्या है, मुझे ये बताइए. आप कह रहे हैं प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंस.
Nadeem sir, what is, so can you give me an example of Egypt, Turkey, Vietnam के उनके क्या जहाँ पे लग रहे हैं ये petrochemical plants? And I'm just asking you a question. Can you give me the benchmarks के वहाँ पे क्या industry को protection दी गई है? हम कोई उससे ज़्यादा नहीं मान रहे.
I have no idea जी.
Absolutely, we are asking exactly same what Vietnam and Egypt have given under IMF program. Egypt is under an IMF program right now, you know that. So nothing more is being asked for. It's the days of getting 30%, 20% protection are gone. Nobody's even asking for it. I'm just saying कि आपको वो level तो protection चाहिए कि जिस वक्त आपकी project financing चल रही है, when projects are at.
Can I respond, Jahangir Saab?
Please, sir.
देखिए, I lived in Egypt. I was the IMF representative in Egypt a while ago. Egypt has no economy to emulate. I've been called to advise Egypt once again, 2015. They are a very inefficient economy with all kinds of problems at hand. They're similar to Pakistan, inefficiencies. अगर inefficiencies पालनी है जरूर पालें, बड़ी अच्छी बात है, बहुत अच्छी बात है. फिर आप गालियां देते हैं, टैक्स नहीं आता, फिर आप गालियां देते हैं, आपने inefficiency पालनी है तो पालें. देखिए, वियतनाम आई डोंट नो. इजिप्ट इज नोबडी टू लुक टू फॉर एफिशिएंसी. हम हमेशा भागते हैं इंडिया के पीछे जुट के, जहां कोई इनएफिशिएंसी हो वहां भागते हैं हम एग्जांपल वहां करते हैं. भाई, हमें एफिशिएंट होना है कि नहीं होना? हमने एफिशिएंट होना है, हम काम करें. हमें वो इंडस्ट्री चाहिए जो एफिशिएंट हो, जो कंज्यूमर की बैक पे ना चल रही हो. जब आप कंज्यूमर से पैसे लेकर इंडस्ट्री चलाते हैं, लेट्स फेस इट, यू आर टैक्सिंग द कंज्यूमर. इट्स अ टैक्स दैट द कंज्यूमर इज पेइंग. फिर हुकूमत कहती है कि हमारा टैक्स कलेक्ट नहीं हो. भाई, टैक्स तो आपने सेठों को दे दिया, तो आप कलेक्ट कैसे करेंगे? हम गाड़ियों पे सर एक बहुत बड़ा टैक्स देते हैं, कोई छोटा मोटा टैक्स नहीं देते. तकरीबन 200% गाड़ी पे टैक्स चला जाता है हमारा. तो हम देते हैं भाई, ये नहीं कि नहीं हम देते. हुकूमत उनको पास ऑन कर देती है, हुकूमत की मर्जी. ठीक है जी. अच्छा, मुझे अब ये बात बताइए कि किदवाई साहब, हमारी जो जो केमिकल इंडस्ट्री है, सबसे बड़ी केमिकल इंडस्ट्री हमारी कौन सी स्टॉक मार्केट पे लिस्टेड है? मैं उसका स्टॉक तो ले लूं, उसका शेयर तो ले लूं. वो कौन सी कंपनी और उसका कितना, क्या उसका साइज होगा? सबसे बड़ी हमारी केमिकल की कंपनी क्या है? किदवाई साहब अनम्यूट कर लें किदवाई साहब। जी
ये भी बताएंगे, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में एंग्रो इज वन ऑफ दोस, आईसीआई भी है, लेकिन यही है ज्यादा। जहांगीर पराचा साहब इस पर रोशनी डालेंगे। मैं सिर्फ इस एक कमेंट इसमें करना चाहूँगा कि हमारे पास एक शॉर्ट कट है। अगर हम मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट को टैप करें, और ये जो बातें हुई हैं ओपन एंडेड भी हैं कुछ, और कुछ बड़े अच्छे सजेशन भी हैं माशाल्लाह। तो इसमें आई थिंक दिस इज नॉट अ रेस दैट लूज विन, इट कैन बिकम विन विन। और हम इतने भी हमें डिसअपॉइंट नहीं होना चाहिए। ये जो बातें हुई इसमें हम मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट से जो शॉर्टकट रास्ता है वो हम चले, जरूरी नहीं हमें कि हम वो R&D के उस प्रोसेस से गुजरे जिससे दुनिया ने खर्चा करके किया है। तो इंशाल्लाह मैं इतना नाउम्मीद नहीं हूँ। बाकी आई वुड एक्सपेक्ट अ कमेंट फ्रॉम
जी
डॉक्टर साहब।
किदवाई साहब डोंट गेट मी रॉन्ग, मैं भी ना उम्मीद नहीं हूँ, मुझे भी बहुत उम्मीद है। इंशाल्लाह इंशाल्लाह अल्लाह ताला कर देगा। पर मैं आपसे छोटी बात पूछना चाहता हूँ, आईसीआई अभी बिकी थी 4-5 साल पहले, बिकी थी $150 मिलियन की। $150 मिलियन तो हर पाकिस्तानी अमेरिका में लिए फिर रहा है। जिसके पास 7-11 10 है उसके पास $150 मिलियन है, जिसके पास 4 बर्गर जॉइंट्स है $150 मिलियन है। तो ये क्या बड़ी बात है। एनग्रो पता नहीं मुझे, एनग्रो इज अ मल्टीपल थिंग, बट एनग्रो इज बेस्ड ऑन अ फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी, ठीक है ना जी, फीड स्टॉक सब्सिडी है। तो क्वाइट फ्रैंकली एनग्रो की भी मार्केट वैल्यू मेरा ख्याल इस वक्त कोई $1 बिलियन के करीब है। Again, not a very big company. The question is, if we want to grow, we need our companies to grow. I'm in your favor. मैं तो कहता हूँ grow करें please. खुदा के वास्ते become a $20 billion, $30 billion company, even a $1 trillion company. But अगर हमारी companies grow ही नहीं कर रही हैं और सब्सिडी भी ले रही हैं, प्रोटेक्शन भी ले रही हैं, तो फिर हमें सवाल पूछने का तो हक है ना कि भाई क्या हो रहा है।
AOI वाला वगैरह को काम करना चाहिए। ये कमेंट करूं तो मैं कहूंगा कि जे माना है, अभी वो अकेले पाकिस्तान नहीं कर सकता। अगर इंडिया और चाइना के जॉइंट से हमने मुकाबला करना है तो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी हमारे पास सीपैक के हवाले से चाइना के साथ जेवीज बनती हैं, उसकी कोशिश हम अपने तौर पर हमारे मेंबर्स कर रहे हैं। लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में इसमें बोर्ड ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट का बहुत बड़ा रोल है, प्रोएक्टिव रोल बनता है। अगर वो लाइन गारंटीज वगैरह दें तो ये काम आसानी से हो सकता है, वरना अकेले आप ठीक कह रहे हैं, अकेले मुश्किल हो जाएगा क्योंकि वॉल्यूम्स की गेम है। वॉल्यूम्स में और जो कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस और ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस चल रहा है इस मुल्क में, उसमें अकेले सोलो फ्लाइट के साथ तो बिजनेस मैन नहीं जा सकता।
आप ये कह रहे हैं कि हुकूमत
तो
की
ये
सब्सिडी के
solution है।
बगैर, हुकूमत की सब्सिडी के बगैर हम काम नहीं कर सकते, हमें सब्सिडी चाहिए। बीओआई क्या, बीओआई हुकूमत ही है ना, और आप कह रहे हैं गारंटीज चाहिए, सब्सिडी चाहिए। तो ये तो आई थिंक क्वाइट फ्रैंकली वी नीड अ लार्जर डिस्कशन ऑन दिस कि ये 70 साल से सब्सिडी का जो निज़ाम चल रहा है जिसने हमें तकरीबन बैंकरप्ट कर दिया है, क्या ये निज़ाम ठीक है, अच्छा है? क्यों जी जहांगीर पराचा साहब बताइए।
Nadeem sir, there are two models you can do. Either you can have your local people invest, that's one, or either you, so China में कोई जब China की जो industrialization start हुई, या or you could have foreign investors coming in and doing the major investments in the country. So दोनों में attractiveness होनी चाहिए ना। अगर तो पाकिस्तानी आप feel करते हैं कि capital or companies do not have the capability, then you should go all out to bring in large companies from outside to come and invest in Pakistan and make Pakistan an investment destination, and they can produce in Pakistan and export from here or for the local market. So that's one route you can do. Second route is कि आप अपने ही लोगों से काम कराने की कोशिश करें और उनकी एक certain limitation है। आप खाली, मैं अगर एक प्रोजेक्ट करना चाहता हूँ, आई गेट लिमिटेड बाय स्टेट बैंक्स रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ पर पार्टी लिमिट ऑफ डेट यू कैन टेक, यू नो दिस। सो आपके पास इवन आप अगर करना भी चाहें, हम ये आपको थर्ड प्रोजेक्ट की एग्जांपल दे देते हैं। वी आर लिमिटेड टू टेक लोकल डेट, वी हैव टू गो आउटसाइड। आई मीन आई अंडरस्टैंड दैट इफ यू आर ब्रिंगिंग इन क्या कहते हैं सम फॉरेन इक्विपमेंट, तो उसके लिए तो आप फॉरेन डेट ले लें, बट पर पार्टी लिमिट्स की वजह से आपको कई दफा बाहर जाना पड़ रहा है फॉर एंड यू नो गेटिंग डेट फ्रॉम आउटसाइड द वर्ल्ड फ्रॉम इंटरनेशनल बैंकर्स। सो देयर आर इम्पेंडेंट्स आल्सो। I can at least say that Engro perpetually has been investing. अब ये जो हम जैसे PDH project हमने announce किया है, we are not asking for any subsidies. So we understand as of today 1200 रुपए का बैग है और आज अगर आप इंपोर्ट कर लें तो 5000 का, तो इस टाइम पे तो आप अगर सब्सिडी खत्म कर देना, and I think Engro का narrative change हुआ है. In fact, they are saying in some of the forums that you should create an environment where you give international prices in Pakistan and then you charge international prices for gas also. So I mean, if वो अगर government करना चाहे तो definitely, I mean, if can your farmer afford a 5,000 rupee bag, urea bag? Absolutely. मतलब इतना ही अच्छा है तो आप करा ले, import हो जाना चाहिए. वो आई थिंक वो थोड़ा सा जो हमारा स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें चेंजेस तो आने की जरूरत है डेफिनेटली. जो आपका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है, काफी हद तक पिछले चंद सालों में नैरेटिव ये जरूर हुआ है कि गवर्नमेंट से अब कम सपोर्ट ली जाए. मांगी जरूर जाती है लेकिन कम की तरफ है. और अनफॉर्चुनेटली if it was such a bonanza and we had such a great sort of economy, people would be queuing up to invest in Pakistan. That's not even happening, unfortunately. That your local people have limited capability or whatever their limitations. वो हमारे पास तो यही लोग हैं जी जिन्होंने करना है. They and is it the right time? मतलब maybe 70s they lost confidence in taking riskier projects. Same people were maybe doing much more riskier projects at that time. तो अब नहीं करना चाहते. Maybe they take some money outside Pakistan and they want to invest outside. So point is कि कोई बाहर वाला भी तो नहीं आ रहा पाकिस्तान में, unfortunately. कोई ऐसा कोई bonanza यहाँ नजर नहीं आ रहा कि लोग बाहर से भी आ जाएं और कर लें. So your own people you don't want to encourage them because you don't want to give them any incentives. They don't invest in that case. External people are not coming because they don't find you attractive enough. So we can mull around on this path. But I have a feeling now, I'm hopeful that we have got scale in some of the industries, inshallah. And I think we should see those industries come through and not have duty protections on those industries.
जहांगीर साहब, I'm also very hopeful. बिल्कुल मैं मानता हूँ, उम्मीद मैंने नहीं छोड़ी. बट जो मुझे है ना, आप कह रहे हैं डेट पे चले. फॉर एग्जांपल मैं बाहर इंडस्ट्रीज देखता हूँ वो डेट पे नहीं चलती. There are very few companies that take on debt. IPOs. And they mainly put in equity. हमारे जो investors हैं वो equity डालना ही नहीं चाहते, वो सिर्फ debt पे चलना चाहते हैं because they find that debt is a subsidy and that there is a history of not paying back your debt. ठीक है ना जी. तो ये भी एक प्रॉब्लम है. तो जब आप डेट पे बैक नहीं करते वो भी टैक्स पे आ जाता है. तो essentially जब हम कहते हैं ना जब हम कहते हैं हमें ये करना चाहिए then what we are talking about is a taxpayer. The poor driver, the poor cook, the poor gardener, कि वो subsidize करे इंडस्ट्री को, वो जाके सेल फोन महंगे खरीदे, वो जाके महंगी गाड़ियां खरीदे, महंगे मोटरसाइकिल खरीदे, और वो सब कुछ जो केमिकल बेस आया उसका भी वो खमियाजा भुगते. तो I think quite frankly there has to be an industry reset on this. We should think about it. You got very small companies, you got highly profitable companies, and people squirrel away the profits and do not want to reinvest without debt and without a government thing. जैसे इंटरेस्ट रेट ऊपर जाता है सब शोर में जाते हैं, इंटरेस्ट रेट गिराओ. मैं उनको अक्सर कहता हूँ भाई इस तरह कर लो कि कम से कम आप इस तरह करें कि आप अपना वो कर दें, क्या कहते हैं, इक्विटी डाल दें मार्केट में. कहते हैं इक्विटी नहीं हमने डालनी, इक्विटी तो हम सीने के साथ रखेंगे. तो why can't we have equity finance projects? वो होने चाहिए. अच्छा, let me ask you another question जी. सिंपल सी बात है, ये तो आपने कर दिया, ये नाफ्ता क्रैकर भी हो गया, फर्टिलाइजर की सब्सिडी अब हटा दें, हमें क्या मसला है? Why can't we take out the fertilizer subsidy? पर वो भी नहीं हमने हटानी. So I don't know where to go. This is a complex debate. क्यों जी? अदील साहब आप बताइए. You mashallah seem to have done a lot of research. How do we change the paradigm in this country? Because we've got an industry which I call a 70-year-old infant. We have to keep subsidizing it. It will never grow up. And how do we handle this situation?
So I think it's a very interesting debate, and someone who came to Pakistan, one with the bioeconomy vision, but also a social entrepreneurship vision. So जो grassroots होती है business की entrepreneurship पे, अब यही मैं आजकल academia में UT में होता हूँ, तो मैं देखता हूँ बच्चों में एक तो overall पाकिस्तान का जो मेरा 4 साल का भी experience कह लें, एक तो risk taking appetite बिल्कुल ही नहीं है. ठीक है, हमारे जो बच्चे हैं वो खौफ में ही रहते हैं. कोई भी ये नहीं कहता कि अब जब यूके में मेरी अपब्रिंगिंग हुई थी तो वहाँ जो थी रिस्क टेकिंग और जो मिस्टेक्स करना वो इनकरेज करते थे. The thing is, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn, and if you don't learn, you don't grow. So there's fundamental things that are missing within the society. The other thing is there's a lack of leadership. In general, I remember when I was doing my PhD in Manchester, I mean, they were so much ingrained is about leadership. Now, when we look at the graduates that are coming out, and Jahangir would be, he can confirm this. I mean, there's a lack of leadership in general. Be PGCL वालों ने मुझे invite किया था interviews के लिए, 53,000 applicants थे, उन्होंने 1,000 narrow किए, then there was 60, and then out of 20 we have to choose 5. But the substance that was coming out of these educational institutes, fundamentally, they didn't forget studying the company. They didn't know about themselves. उनकी strengths क्या हैं, weaknesses क्या हैं. और ये जो है ये it falls back onto us as academics. मैं भी इसकी responsibility लेता हूँ. तो हमें fundamentally जो है ना society को देखना पड़ेगा कि कहाँ हमारी जो है fundamental flaws हैं. और जहाँ तक funding की बात आती है, मेरा जो मॉडल है और जो बायोइकोनॉमी का मेरा जो विजन है वो ये है कि we need to tap into innovative models, financial models. So crowdsource funding is something that's very exciting, but to me personally. और ये मैं loans पे नहीं मानता, और putting more burden on the government is something that I'm against because they're already saturated. ठीक है, वेस्ट में वो फिर भी कर लेते हैं, मगर यहाँ जो है पाकिस्तान में it doesn't make sense to me. तो मेरा यही है कि fundamentally हमें जो है from foundation upwards we need to really sit down and put our heads together and develop models. तो ये मेरा perspective है.
ठीक है. Thank you, very kind of you. Saad Saab, if you're around, what's your perspective on this? How can we get a healthy chemical industry, innovative? अच्छा, एक और question इसमें आ गया. Saad Saab, if you're around, can you tell me, do we have any R&D in our chemical industry? Saad Saab is gone, I think. He's not there. Okay. Jahangir Saab, do we have any R&D in our chemical industry?
Absolutely zero. Nothing, sir.
Do we have any
dependent on external sort of licenses and R&D institutes?
Kidwai Saab, ये बताइए कि R&D हमारी किसी इंडस्ट्री में नहीं है और आप लोग यूनिवर्सिटी से भी नहीं ताउन रखते, तो मतलब
डॉक्टर नदीम मैं यहाँ जरा ऐड करना
जी
चाहूँगा.
जी बोलिए.
तो से मैं यूनिवर्सिटी में हूँ तो पर्सपेक्टिव देना चाह रहा हूँ. Basically the thing is HEC is at fault in my opinion. Why? Because an academic's progression is based on his publication count. पेपर छापो, ठीक है, तो कोई हमें इंसेंटिव है ही नहीं कि हम इंडस्ट्री के साथ लेस करें. तो मैंने इसके ऊपर मैं इंडस्ट्री लेजियन दी हूँ, तो मैंने इंडस्ट्री का भी पर्सपेक्टिव लिया. इंडस्ट्री का पर्सपेक्टिव ये है कि एकेडमिक्स को सिर्फ हमारा नाम चाहिए ग्रांट्स के लिए, उसके बाद वो लिफ्ट नहीं करवाते. ठीक है, एकेडमिक्स का है कि हमें हमारी जो प्रमोशन होती है वो पेपर काउंट्स पे होती है.
ये ठीक है, ये ठीक है Adeel Saab, I mind that and I agree. I've written a book on this, but the problem is I can send you the book, it's lying here somewhere. I wrote a book on HEC and the research, and yes, of course that's a huge stupid thing that HEC has done. But मुझे बताइए, हमारी इंडस्ट्री प्रोटेक्शन भी लेती है, R&D भी नहीं करती. No R&D whatsoever. R&D does not mean that you are going to discover the next molecule or the next atom or the next वो क्या कहते हैं elementary particle or something. R&D means solving your own problems. R&D means creating efficiency. I don't think R&D means just highfalutin research. Just looking at your own system and making it better. और मैं इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट को फोन करता रहता हूँ, बात करता रहता हूँ. None of them want any research, and yet McKinsey से रिसर्च करवा लेंगे. McKinsey को 20-30 मिलियन डॉलर देते हैं रिसर्च करने के लिए, अपने इदारे को 1 टका भी नहीं देंगे. McKinsey उनको थर्ड रेट रिसर्च देती है, वो वहां से भी करवा लेते हैं. तो हमारा तो माइंडसेट ही ऐसा है कि वी रियली डोंट वांट टू प्रोग्रेस. ऑल वी वांट टू डू इज, वो मेरा बैंकिंग का जो मेरा है ना सिंपल सा स्लोगन, वो बड़ा सिंपल है. बैंकिंग का पता क्या मतलब है? 9-4 गोल्फ एट 2. 4% पे हुकूमत को पैसे दे देते हैं, 9% पे हुकूमत को वापस दे देते हैं. ठीक है, उनसे पैसे लेते हैं, 4% डिपॉजिट, 9% बिल बेच के उनको ट्रेजरी बिल, उसके बाद गोल्फ खेलने चले जाते हैं. तो हमारा तो सिर्फ एक ही इंडस्ट्री का मॉडल रह गया है कि हमने किसी तरीके से हुकूमत या टैक्स पेयर से पैसे लेना है. भाई खुदारा कोई बताओ तो सही, कोई नई चीज R&D करके आप लोग नहीं बना सकते. मैं नहीं कहता कोई बड़ी चीज बनाए, कोई छोटा प्रोसेस री इंजीनियरिंग कर सकते हैं, वो भी नहीं कर रहे. कोई छोटी सी एफिशिएंसी ला सकते हैं, वो भी नहीं आ रही. ये जो अब मोबाइल फोन के आपने एग्जांपल दिया जहांगीर साहब, बड़ा अच्छा है. मोबाइल फोन एक इंडस्ट्री है जो R&D में चलती है. मैं हर साल वेट करता हूँ नए फोन का। वो जनाब आगे से आगे निकली जा रहे हैं लोग। इट्स एन R&D बिजनेस। अब देखें ना, सिंपल सी बात, एप्पल जो है, एप्पल इज अ $2.5 ट्रिलियन कंपनी। एप्पल डजंट मेक अ सिंगल थिंग। एप्पल मेक्स नथिंग। एप्पल गिव्स चाइना द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग राइट। कहते तुम बनाओ। Apple is an R&D company. Apple is purely an R&D company, makes nothing. Yet it is the largest company in the world, $2.5 ट्रिलियन की कंपनी है। अब आप मुझे बताएं, R&D के बगैर हमारी हुकूमत, हमारी कंट्री, एनग्रो इतनी बड़ी कंपनी, आप कहते हैं कोई R&D नहीं करते, किदवाई साहब कहते हैं कोई R&D नहीं करते, तो मैं तो परेशान हूँ।
नदीम साहब, थोड़ा सा मैं आपको करेक्शन कर दूं, लाइक एफिशिएंसी रिलेटेड, जैसे आपने कहा, आई मीन ऑब्वियसली वी आर नॉट क्रिएटिंग एनी new processes, but obviously we are looking for efficiency because obviously it saves dollars and cents. तो वो वाली तो होती है कुछ ना कुछ, ऐसा नहीं है कि बिल्कुल नहीं होती। उसमें एकेडेमिया के साथ भी प्रोजेक्ट्स हुए हैं, like we every year give some projects to universities, especially final year students, and they do solve our problems. But अगर आप कहना कि systematic 3 से यार 3% of the top line is being sort of put away for R&D, and you will do mistakes with it, and you will do. So we want a very short return type of an R&D कि हम यार ये चलेगा तो तब उसमें तो कुछ पैसे लगा लेते हैं, but वो वाली जो the risk money appetite of let's say 2 to 3% of your, let's say, top line going into R&D, that's not happening, to be honest. I will say. Yes, I agree. I mean, these are the kind of things which we need to do, because otherwise we will become very fast irrelevant, और हो भी रहे हैं, काफी चीजों में irrelevant हो गए। I'm with you on this one.
बिगड़े हुए बच्चों का सर यही होता है, बिगड़े हुए बच्चे जो उनसे होते हैं जिनको मारना पड़े जबकि उनके गंदे ग्रेड्स आए हैं, तो बिगड़े हुए बच्चे तो फिर और बिगड़ते जाते हैं। तो हमें जब सब्सिडी मिल जाती है आराम से, कोई बैंक्रप्सी नहीं होती, कोई प्रेशर नहीं R&D का। R&D सर एक प्रोडक्ट नया डिफाइन करने पे R&D होती है। R&D उस पर भी होती है कि नया प्रोडक्ट कैसे आ सकता है, छोटी सी ट्वीकिंग। अब देखें ये जो है यूनिलीवर न्यू इम्प्रूव टूथपेस्ट पे, टूथपेस्ट का कंटेनर नया बनाना, उस पर R&D करते हैं। और कितनी चीजें, कोक को देखें, कोक ने अपनी पैकेजिंग कितनी इंप्रूव करके, प्रोडक्ट एक ही है, पैकेजिंग इंप्रूव करके, सेल करके उन्होंने क्या कर दिया है, हमारे मुल्क में वो आपसे बड़े हैं। इट्स अमेजिंग, इट्स अमेजिंग। जी साद साहब, व्हाट वुड यू लाइक टू से?
जितना मैं पाकिस्तान को जानता हूं, तो एक चीज जो हो सकती है कि आप सब्सिडीज ऑफ कोर्स रिमूव ना करें, लेकिन उसको चैनल तो कर सकते हैं ना। आप कह रहे हैं अच्छा फर्टिलाइजर्स को जरूरत नहीं है, उनको ना दें, आप न्यू प्रोजेक्ट्स पे जहां पर आप देखते हैं कि सब्सिडीज की जरूरत है, कि सब्सिडीज के बगैर काम और इंसेंटिव्स के बगैर गवर्नमेंट के काम होगा नहीं। मिडिल ईस्ट में नहीं होता, हालांकि उनके पास इतनी जबरदस्त ऑयल बेस है, फिर भी नहीं होता। उनकी भी कंपनीज को जरूरत होती है। तो हम कैसे कह सकते हैं कि बगैर किसी इंसेंटिव के, बगैर किसी सब्सिडी के इतना बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट इक्विटी पर चल जाएगा? नहीं चल सकता, मुश्किल है।
सब्सिडी कौन देगा?
सब्सिडी देनी तो गवर्नमेंट को ही पड़ेगी, लेकिन
मतलब आप चाहते हैं कि टैक्सी ड्राइवर, माली और जो बेचारे गरीब लोग हैं वो सब्सिडी दें अमीर लोगों को इंडस्ट्री लगाने के लिए? तो फिर इससे बेहतर है यार वो खुद ही पैसे खा लें कि नहीं, उनको क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
अभी भी तो दे ही रहे ना, अभी भी दे ही रहे हैं। वो इंडस्ट्री वाला वही बाहर से प्रोडक्ट लाकर उनको बेच रहा है। खाना
ट्रेडर ले रहा है, अभी ट्रेडर ले रहा है नदीम साहब। अभी जो आप कह रहे हैं कि something is getting imported, it's not being passed through. I mean, it's the traders which are actually making the money. So exactly. Yes, you'll take it out from the trader. I agree with you. The guy will still pay the same price. It will be he was paying it to the trader's pocket. Right now it will go to the industry, but at least you get some physical. Trader के साथ तो आपको physical, मतलब if you shut down your industry, then you will become a trading nation, and the traders will make money. Obviously in the end इसमें कोई physical assets तो add हो रहे हैं। अगर even if our lower middle class and middle class is funding it, you get some physical assets in the country, you create certain jobs also. Traders तो बैठ के 2 दफ्तर में 3 बंदे बैठ के सारा काम कर लेते हैं। I mean, अगर आपने polyethylenes और HDPs बनाने और एक प्लांट यहाँ लगेगा, तो अभी भी तो ट्रेड आ रहा है ना। Almost 800,000 tons of polyethylenes are coming to Pakistan and the traders are making that money ना, नहीं बना रहे। तो डाउनस्ट्रीम को उसका कन्वर्टर है वो बना रहा है। उसने कोई अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को सस्ता नहीं कर दिया दुनिया से, प्रोडक्ट तो उसी रेट पे मिल रहा है। if it gets built in Pakistan, then the trader is gone. The final product price doesn't change actually. It stays the same. It's outside job एक internet एक आपने अगर let's say एक चीज लेनी है वो traded आ रही है उसकी price कम तो नहीं है पाकिस्तान में.
और फिर गवर्नमेंट भी तो पैसा बनाएगा ना, इसलिए कि अगर बॉटम लाइन इंप्रूव हुई तो गवर्नमेंट के पास भी तो कुछ जाएगा ना. Absolutely.
It creates jobs also. I mean, you have a 200 million people. How can you survive on trading only? So that's not going to work out. Gentlemen, I have
Thank
to
you,
actually...
Ji. Thank you very much, Ji. Thank you very much, Jahangir Saab. Thank you very much, Kidwai Saab. Thank you very much, Adeel Saab. Unfortunately, ये मुल्क ऐसे ही चलेगा. Nobody wants to think. Nobody wants to research. Nobody wants to talk. So fine. We'll all no. We are very optimistic, but we have to be realistic. I'm very optimistic. Inshallah, I'll have a great life. Inshallah, नौकर शौकर जिंदा रहेंगे. But quite frankly, if you talk about global competition, हमारा हाल वही होगा जो Olympics में हुआ था कि 24 officials थे और 8 players थे और medals कोई नहीं आए. तो हम ऐसी nation ही है कि officials ज़्यादा होते हैं, players कम होते हैं, subsidy ज़्यादा होती है और जनाब आप बनाते कुछ नहीं. Thank you very much, folks. All the best. Inshallah, we'll do it again. Thanks for coming around. Bye bye.